What's up, guys, and welcome back to an OOTP20 series with the Arizona Diamondbacks. With me, Archer Gaming. Decided to start on this screen. I've had a little bit of time to think, so some of the off-season plans are solidifying, and I've had some time to shop out Wilmer Flores. I decided to start with this one, though, because I think that it's kind of important to understanding how I am going to be managing this team. So Wilmer Flores, if we take a look at him, 838 OPS last year, really good, had a great average, hit 28 home runs, drove in 108. He was really, really solid, a 3-WAR player. That's a very, very good player in general. But the reason that I'm trading him, for one thing, is control, right? So we don't have a ton of control left on him, which is that after the 2020 season, he would be gone. And the second thing is, to me, he's kind of replaceable. So one thing that we can do is we can go to our lineups and depth charts, look at our graphical depth chart. If we look at Wilmer Flores there, and then we just go one down on the depth chart to Christian Walker, sure, the defense is worse, I'll grant you that, but also a very similar offensive player, I think. And if you look at his OPS, he had an 831 OPS last year. So we have a ready-made replacement, in a sense, who's 28, but has more team control. He's on the minimum salary, and he's not even arbitration eligible yet. So for that reason, we can say, okay, Wilmer Flores is good, but let's get value for him right now when we don't really need him, is what I'm getting at. So let's go back to this trade. And here's the other thing that I'm looking to do. When I'm trading a Wilmer Flores, there are two ways I could go about this, right? I could say I want to trade Wilmer Flores and get prospects that are going to make an impact within the next year or within the next 5 months, let's say. Or I can get major league players, things like that. Or I can say, let's stack this organization 2 years down the line, 3 years down the line. And what I've chosen to do is sort of go at it from a 2 and 3 years down the line sort of mentality. So if you look at Carson Jones, one of the guys that we're getting back, good prospect, if he develops, could be like a 3.5 ERA type of player, but he's 19, so he's super young. He was just drafted in this last draft. And Will Fritch, same sort of thing. Again, kind of like an average-ish player, but again, 19. So a lot of things can happen between here and then someone a little bit more developed in Stuart Aquino, whose name I almost certainly have butchered, but again, 20 years old, right? So a little bit further along, but not super far along. And this is the way I'm thinking about it, is that you can have a good team for 2 years. But what I'm trying to do is have a good team for a very long stretch of years and continually have a good major league product while being able to bring up players from the minor leagues and supplement them with free agents as need be in order to have a consistent winning product. Because the end goal of this series for me is to have a consistent sort of dynastic feel to the Diamondbacks. I don't want to make it to the World Series and then the next year I can't even make the playoffs. The end goal is, of course, to win a World Series, but I feel like we're going to have to be in the playoffs and around those higher echelons of the playoffs quite a few times before maybe we get there. So that's the reason why I'm doing things like this. That's the reason why I'm trading Wilmer Flores. I think it's a good trade, and just for explaining the realism of it as well, if you look at the Angels, they're sort of contending with the Astros for the top of this division, but Justin Bour was their first baseman, and he hit 201 and had 17 home runs last season. So you can see why they might be looking for an upgrade. Not to mention that Wilmer Flores can, play multiple positions if need be. So anyway, all that out of the way, just wanted to sort of give you an insight into my philosophy, and let's go ahead and complete the trade. Obviously, the fans aren't very happy about it. I can understand that, but I think it sets us up a little bit more long term. So, that said, let's go to the free agent side of things. I have decided that my first port of call is going to be Colin McHugh, because I don't think Alex Wood is good enough to justify the salary that he wants. Chihiro Kaneko, I just feel like he's going to get worse over the course of one season, not to mention two. Um, and again, if we're looking at building something that lasts longer than like a season, I don't think he's really our best option. So Colin McHugh is who I'm going to be going after, at least to start. I'm going to try and get him on a 2-year deal at, let's say, like maybe around $4.5 million per year, and we'll see what he likes. That is good with him. So there you go, Colin McHugh. I think that'll work. I mean, obviously, I would love to have somebody like a Garrett Cole, but again, we're not the Yankees. We can't afford everybody that we want. So let's clear that filter. And then let's go to the batters. So the batters are really interesting to me because we do need just someone really good, or we need somebody who can just fill a role, do their job day in and day out. So we could approach this a lot of different ways. I could go for someone, for example, like a Scooter Gennett, go for that big flashy move and have him drive in runs for, $25 million a year. But I'm a bit hesitant to do that, to be honest with you. And if you look at our lineups and depth charts again, we are missing that sort of infielder. But I also think that we just get stronger overall if we push Marte out of the shortstop role. So, like I said last episode, first port of call is to get a shortstop. So, I already have my eye on one shortstop in particular, which is Addison Russell. I'm pretty equally good to go with like a Freddie Galvis, who actually is slightly better in terms of the contributions he can make on the defensive side of the ball. But I think Addison Russell, he's young, he's pretty good on defense, he works hard, and I think he's a lot better than his stats have been showing. I think he can put up like a 750. I don't think that that's outside the realm of possibility. So I'm going to go ahead and try and get Addison Russell. He only wants a minor league contract, which means that I'm going to try and get him like really on the cheap, so like $1.5 million. And then we'll see where that goes. So that's two offers that we made. And one of them is for like $1.5 million. The other one is for like $4.5 million. That's like $5.5 million, let's say, which will leave us somewhere in the neighborhood of $20 million to spend. Now again, I'm looking at infielders. I don't want to spend all of that money, but I can see spending, a good portion of it on somebody that I think is going to be impactful, preferably for more than 1 year, but it doesn't have to be. So as I look through all of these names, somebody that pops up a lot is somebody like a Jonathan Scope, but I think that's actually a little bit below where we want to be going. And I think we want to be looking more towards this like Didi Gregorius, Asdrubal Cabrera type area. Didi Gregorius, again, he's that type of player, but I actually think that Asdrubal Cabrera is the guy that we want. And here's why. He can play a competent third base. He won't be super, super expensive, and he will only be with us for 1 year. But I like his personality. He'll add a little bit of life to the clubhouse. He can play third base. That'll push Eduardo Escobar to second base, which fills in another one of our holes. Then we can have an infield of Cabrera, Addison Russell, Eduardo Escobar, and Christian Walker. And I think that that's a really good infield just all across the board. Then our outfield is going to be Steven Souza Jr., Ketel Marte, and David Peralta, which is a fantastic outfield. They'll drive in our runs for the majority of things. So this is who I'm going to go with. I've thought about it for a little bit. I have considered other options, but I just think that they're going to be a little bit too expensive, especially when you consider that it would probably be ideal for us to sign a backup catcher rather than to get one from AAA. So he's going to want a very long contract for $10.5 million a year. I'm going to try and get him for just 1 year, with like let's say a vesting option, where if he plays, I don't know, all 162 games, then he'll get that vesting, which I think is very unlikely. But if it does happen, maybe it shows us that he's, actually still physically capable of doing so. And I'm going to boost this to like 13 and a half, and 12 and a half, which is a pretty significant step up. And I'm just going to see how he responds to that. So this is probably a true representation of what he wants. And again, we want something very different from that. So let's try and get him, I think that 14 and 13 is pretty fair. Anything more than that though, and I'm going to start getting a little bit antsy. And again, this is the first time I've been in negotiations with him, so I don't know what's going to happen. I'd be willing to go 15 and 13. I think we're getting close to further than I want to go. Yeah, that's not going to happen. All right, so that was our first option. The thing about free agency is that you should always have backup plans. So Asdrubal Cabrera is our first option. Let's figure out who our second option will be, and I will get straight into the negotiations once I figure that out. All right, option number 2, Mike Moustakas. Again, a good bat, got some home run power, is the biggest thing. Can play a good third base, pushes Escobar to second, blah, 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 you know the rest. So let's see what we can get Moustakas on. He's 31, so I'd be willing to go something like 2 years with a third-year vesting option of, again, like 160 games played. I think 9 mil is about fair, but I'll go up to 10 just to try and convince him for the first year that it's worth it. And he likes that, so we're going to go ahead and submit that. And that should be most of what we do in free agency. That'll be our big bulk impact moves, Moustakas, McHugh, and Russell, and hopefully that fills out our team in a way that's satisfying. Now we have to consider our catcher. Just see if we can sign a backup catcher. No one really pops out to me here, other than Yasmani Grandal, who obviously is going to want a ton of money. So I'll kind of make that signing under the radar and not worry about it too much. And we'll just keep you updated on Moustakas, McHugh, and Russell, and then whoever I eventually sign as a backup catcher, or if I just go with someone from AAA. So I will see you whenever anything changes. All right, so just to keep you guys up to date on the bigger baseball universe, so to speak, Paul Goldschmidt and Didi Gregorius sign on the same day. Goldschmidt goes back to the Cardinals for being the Arizona GM now. It sucks to see him go over there and succeed. He didn't have the best first season, but it was pretty damn good, and I can only expect him to continue mashing late into his career. 4-year deal is not too bad as well at age 32 for a first baseman. And then Didi Gregorius has gone to the Chicago Cubs. If you'll remember, he was also, if I look at his batting stats, also part of the Arizona Diamondbacks. And we gave him up to the New York Yankees, which seemed like a decent idea at the time because he was hitting 650 OPS, and then the Yankees took him and made him into a star. So good on him, but both of those signings kind of hurt just a little bit and are hopefully an example of things that we will avoid. We'll keep our biggest and brightest stars hopefully in Arizona from now on. But wow, $21 million a year over 5 years for Didi Gregorius, pretty high price to pay. So I'll let you know if any other big signings happen or if we start negotiating with some players. All right, December 5th, another big pair of free agent signings. Thankfully, neither of them Arizona alums. First is Garrett Cole going back to Houston, 6-year deal worth almost $200 million. Huge signing for them and for the 29-year-old. Obviously somebody that everyone should have wanted, and quite frankly, could have gotten more money, I think, just the way that the pitching market is. But otherwise, fantastic deal, I think, for both sides. So we'll see how that one develops for them. And then Yasmani Grandal has signed for the Red Sox, about $105 million deal for him. He didn't hit too great last year, but he did better the year before, and again brings great defense along with a little bit of power to the catcher position. So I think that's a really solid signing for them. Around 17 million a year, maybe a little bit overpriced, but again, just a big free agent signing. Want to keep you guys all filled in. We're about to get to Hall of Fame voting. I'm not sure if I am going to do that or not. I think I'll wait maybe a couple of years until there's some more interesting names to talk about on the docket. But I'll be back in case we're negotiating or in case some other big free agent signs. Okay, so only 3 days later and a ton of stuff going on. Obviously, the Angels liked Wilmer Flores a lot because they got the trade in, and then they signed him for another 3 years, $26 million deal. It's about $8.5 million a year. For him is what it averages out to. And then Xander Bogaerts signed with St. Louis, so they are building quite the behemoth over there in St. Louis with Goldschmidt and Bogaerts, just to add in a little bit more firepower to their already incredible roster. So they could very well be looking to win that division next year. And then Mike Trout, 8-year extension, which is actually less than he got in real life, $322 million. I mean, that's just insane. But he actually got more in real life and deserved it. Still fantastic in this game. Then Zach Wheeler signed for the Minnesota Twins. He had a really solid season actually last year, although he's out 3 months with shoulder inflammation. That's what really worried me, and that's why I didn't really pursue him. But at 12 million to start and then all the way escalating up to 19 million, it looks like I probably wouldn't have been able to get him anyway. So the Twins signed him, and then Nick Castellanos went and signed for 5 years at around 14 million a year. He had a huge year last year, so this does sort of make sense. But if I were a Giants fan, I would worry about him patrolling the, shall we say, spacious outfield out there in San Francisco. So a lot going on. None of our guys have come back to negotiate with us yet, so I think I'm going to take that as a good sign that they like the offers. We'll see how it develops, especially as we get towards winter meetings here in just a couple of days. All right, so the first day of winter meetings, and just about everybody was happy with the offer that we gave them. Jake Arrieta also signs for the Rangers after having, again, a pretty good year in Philly, but some worrying peripherals as his strikeouts per 9 continued to dip. We'll see how he does over in Dallas. $18 million a year for him, and then Texas really going at it in free agency with the Astros signing Yasiel Puig to add to their collection of really good hitters. Didn't hit very well with Cincinnati over half of a season, and then half of a season went to Atlanta and absolutely crushed it. I imagine he'll land somewhere in the middle of those two outcomes, maybe like an 850 OPS, but at 15 mil a year escalating to 17, it's not too bad. We'll see how it plays out for them. That's 2 huge free agent signings for them, and the market is already beginning to thin, so we'll see where we need to go with all these contract offers. So just took a day, and a couple of things have already happened. Starling Marte traded in division to the St. Louis Cardinals for Connor Capel and Wilberto Rivera alongside Dylan Carlson, which is a pretty good haul, I think, for Pittsburgh. And we also have our first contract negotiation. Looks like the Chicago Cubs are also in for Colin McHugh. Hasn't upped too much. I think that's still good for us, so we will continue doing that, but seems like more people are in on Colin McHugh than just us, so will be maybe a little bit difficult to sign him. We'll see. And here he is just a couple of days later again, so that possibly proving prophetic as, wow, all the way up to 6.9 million for him. Let's see if we can get that down to like 6.2. No, he won't do that. Let's try like 6 and 0.4. He will do that, so that's still okay for me. I haven't thought quite yet about where our absolute limit lies with him, but I imagine we're getting pretty close to it. Although, since I haven't started thinking about it, that means we're not quite there yet. So we'll keep an eye on that. But again, several teams in on Colin McHugh. And nothing else has happened by the time the Rule 5 draft rolls around. We have the 19th pick. I'm not sure who, if anyone, we will be picking, but we'll take a look around. And let's see. Let's sort by... That's never a good way to sort it. Let's sort by potential. See if there are any standouts. Kevin Ginkel is on there, which is our player. I should add him to the 40-man roster. I don't think anyone's going to draft a 19-year-old out of A-ball, so I'm not worried about Barco. I should be worried about Jared Miller. I'm going to put him on the 40-man. Is there anybody else from our organization? No, it doesn't look like it. Okay, so just taking a look around. Stephen Alame, good defensively, but I just don't think enough with the bat to tempt me. And again, this is someone who has to stay on the Major League roster for an entire season. And I'm not seeing anybody that I'm in love with. Brian Servant actually is interesting. He might be a better option than Tyler Flowers, who is our current free agent, who would be coming in as our backup catcher. Let's just take a look at batting ratings real quick. See if there's anyone that steals the show. Andrew Pullen, he's pretty good. Not quite good enough to get with us, though. Jose Pirela. No, I don't think so with him either. Anybody with huge power? No. So again, nobody that's catching my eye. Pitching ratings. In terms of stuff, there's always some guys that have stuff but no control. Let's see if there's anybody who is the opposite, like a Raul Alcantara. Actually, Addison Reed is on here. That's interesting. Again, not somebody that I think we really need, though. We're so deep in the bullpen. I mean, we have guys just coming out of our ears in terms of bullpen arms. Yeah, nobody I'm loving, which I think the end result of which is just to say, no need to do this. We'll just go ahead and complete the draft. And I think that that is good enough for us. Looks like none of our players got taken, which is as expected. And so we just move on further into the offseason. Usually there's maybe one or two prospects that I like out of that, but just an off year, so we will continue on our crusade to make this team better. So nothing really happening right now. It's been a long time since any of the people that we were after came back to us, but just to let you guys know, the Angels are going nuts in free agency. They've just signed Asdrubal Cabrera to a 4-year deal, which is crazy because he's 34 already. And then they signed Yuki Matsui from Japan, presumably to step in and be their closer, for $19 million over 3 years. They are just going for it, and you can't blame them after they just wrapped up Mike Trout. So a lot of money being put into this Los Angeles Angels lineup. We'll see if it pays off for them. I don't know. We'll see if they can challenge the Astros. All right, and it has finally happened. December 26th, just a day late Christmas present. We've signed Mike Moustakas. We got our man. We will have to give away a third-round draft pick, but I'm not too worried about that. We've also signed Addison Russell to that minor league deal, which we're pretty instantly just going to push him up to the Arizona roster. So 2 of the guys that we really wanted, we've gotten. So that's 2 out of 3 of our quota. We also want to get Colin McHugh. I haven't heard back from him in a while, but we'll see where it goes. And then just to keep you guys in the loop, the Angels, again, big money, throwing out 54 million for Francisco Cervelli, who admittedly is pretty good, but I mean he's not amazing. But they're shelling out the cash in an effort to compete. Justin Verlander goes to the Yankees, which that's not fun, but he gets almost 20 million a year to do it. And I think none of these are really all that impactful. So that is 2 out of the 3 guys. Like I said, we'll see if we can get Colin McHugh. I will keep you updated as and when anything happens on that. No way. Oh, wow. So I've just seen this. It's January 1st, and Josh Donaldson has gone back to the Blue Jays of all places. The 34-year-old signs a 4-year deal worth $86 million, and I mean, where are they going to play? They're just going to put Vlad Guerrero at DH, and they're going to play Donaldson right alongside him, which is just hilarious to me. They're not a competitive team, but there you go. Sign a man for the big bucks for seemingly no reason. That's hilarious to me. But there you go. Donaldson back to Toronto. All right, we are running towards the middle of January quickly, and nothing from Colin McHugh. I even checked at one point to make sure he hadn't signed for somebody else without me noticing, but he just hasn't responded to our offer yet. In the meantime, Marcell Ozuna has signed for around $80 million to go to the Twins. And also the starting pitcher, one of the international free agents, Peng Ran. That's probably close. He signed for $30 million, $10 million a year for the Brewers, which does make me think maybe I was a bit dismissive of him. But that movement just worries me. So we'll see how he does. I'm going to keep an eye on him personally in Milwaukee just to see whether I'm sort of underrating some of these international amateurs that come in. He is only 23, so that plays a big part in it. And again, maybe I'm just, not seeing plus fastball and slider, and I'm missing something here, but I don't think so. I'll keep an eye on it just to kind of check, though. As we're still waiting on Colin McHugh, and kind of can't do anything until he gets back to us. So I'm just pressing the next day button and waiting him out. All right, we got a free agent signing. It's just not the one that we wanted. We got Tyler Flowers in. I think he's going to be a really good catcher. Usually when I'm looking at catchers, I'm not sure if this is what anyone else does, so let me know in the comments if you do it differently, but I only really look at the catcher ability because I kind of don't care if teams steal bases on it. The way that I look at it is that, if someone has extreme speed, they're going to steal bags on you whether you have an 80 grade arm or a 40 grade arm. It doesn't really matter. So you can't stop those guys. The guys where it's a bit marginal on, I don't think it makes the biggest difference. So as long as you don't have like a 30 catcher arm, I think you're fine. But I think that catcher ability really impacts how good a pitcher can be, and specifically whether they're getting calls that would normally be balls, but they're being framed as strikes, and that'll help them out in the long run. So that's what I look at, is that catcher ability, and Tyler Flowers has great catcher ability. I think he'll be just kind of solid for us on offense. I'm hoping he can put up a 700 OPS, but again, he is a backup, so it doesn't matter hugely. 1 year, $4.9 million. It's maybe a bit much, but I think that he's going to be very capable for us. And with him, and then now we, of course, also have Carson Kelly, who has that 65 catcher ability. I think our pitching staff is really going to be able to do just the best that they possibly can. So we're trying to put everyone in a position to succeed as much as possible. Still no Colin McHugh, though. I'll let you know if we can get him someday. We'll see. All right, we got him. There it is. It took till the middle of January. Almost, I think it was like a month and a half that he just didn't radio silence, but we got our man, Colin McHugh. I don't think he's more than like a fourth or fifth starter for us, but I'm just excited to have him in because it's been so long. It's been such a saga. 2-year contract, $6.5 million a year. I think that that's good value for money. He has the stamina, which I'm just looking to get some innings eaten out of him. Had a bad year last year, but I'm not paying attention to it. He's not going to give up 1.8 home runs per 9. That's just not going to happen. I'm really confident in him, and I think he's going to put up like a 3-6 and surprise everybody at the age of 32. So that's Colin McHugh. I think he's going to be really solid for us. That kind of rounds out our roster. Let me go ahead and, so I don't forget, put him onto the active roster. And if we now look at our pitching, we ask our pitch coach for the staff. It's going to be really embarrassing when he doesn't put him in. That's fine. Bench coach obviously disagrees with me, but I'm going to force him to put him in there. You don't have to put him in the number 1 slot, Jesus. But who does that drop out? Are you really going to drop out Yusei? Anyway, I have some problems with my bench coach, is what we're learning. But Colin McHugh, Yusei Kikuchi obviously is going to be part of the rotation. Robbie Ray, Zach Greinke, John Duplantier. I think that's going to be a really solid rotation. Zach Godley and Luke Weaver will be our long relief guys. Then we'll have Archie Bradley, Jimmy Sherfy, possibly Silvino Bracco, possibly one of our AAA guys in that middle relief. And then DeMarcus Evans and Joey Kriebel will be our setup men. Maybe DeMarcus Evans will come and take over as closer from Yohan Lopez, just because I tend to like to get younger guys into those pressure cooker situations early in their career, because I do know that Yohan Lopez is not going to be around forever. So we'll see how that goes. But I think that's a really solid pitching staff. And then as far as our lineups go, let me get the bench coach to fill those in again. Carson Kelly with a backup of Tyler Flowers. And then we have Christian Walker at first. This will need to shuffle around because Eduardo Escobar is going to play second. Addison Russell is going to play short, and Mike Moustakas is going to play third base, and then Peralta, Marte, and obviously Steven Souza Jr. I think that's all very, very solid, especially offensively. One weak point is, of course, Addison Russell, but again, I think that he's going to give us more than people think that he's going to give us. I should be on my head scout ratings. My head scout actually is more confident in him, as am I, and he's going to provide us that good shortstop defense that we didn't have a year ago. And then Ramon Urias is going to be kind of our utility man in the infield, and Socrates Brito is going to be our utility man in the outfield. I think that that's a really solid roster. I don't foresee myself making any more moves, so I'm going to leave it here. If I make anything else happen, it'll go in the next episode, right as I'm in spring training, and I'll explain what went on to change my views so drastically. But for now, I think that's been a really successful offseason. Let me know in the comments if you think the same, if you think that all of these decisions are horrible and Colin McHugh is going to sink our rotation. It's certainly possible. We can talk about it in the comments. Leave a like, not for me, for the algorithms, and I will see you guys on the next episode.